Bringing you back to the old school.
Wow. When I was about 11, Dungeons & Dragons came out.
Gamers. They come in all shapes and sizes, from big to small, young to old. Gamers are everywhere. They're the weirdos that never bathe. They're living in mom's basement and don't have a job. They're the nerds, the losers, and they don't even have a life beyond the games. When you think of gamers, you probably think of this guy. When I think of gamers, I think of these guys. That's because the stereotypes are not accurate at all. Gamers are a diverse segment of our society. In the United States alone, it is estimated that we have over 150 million gamers. But of course, this includes all gaming mediums. Do you play games on your phone or tablet? If you answered yes, that makes you a gamer. Back in the 80s, 90% of gamers were male. Today, nearly 60% of them are female. Gaming has become the mainstay of our households. Parents use games to babysit their children. Adults play games while waiting in the doctor's office. Many people are addicted to their Xbox or PlayStation. With all of this gaming going on, why is it that society views gamers in a negative light? Let's take tabletop games for an example. They promote social skills, help introverts become extroverts, teach mathematics, history, and so much more. Tabletop games are gateways into other worlds, and it is through these worlds we learn to be better people. Tabletop gaming is not about who wins, though that is an important part of the game. It is about the camaraderie and the social interactions. When you play a good game with good friends, you create a story that you can relate to for many years to come. The more games you play, the more stories you create. Through gaming, I learned to see beyond social situation and accept everyone for the individual they are.
So, who are you, and what is your geek claim to fame?
Well, hell, I'm Steve Wallach. I've been involved in over, I guess close to 100 movies these days.
Hi, I'm Dave Simpson. I am the co-creator of Rampaging Jotun, and I also run Gamers on Games, which is a YouTube-based vidcast devoted to tabletop gaming and tabletop gaming-related topics.
Producer, director, actor, game designer.
My geek claim to fame, well, my name is Alex Jackal, and I am I do many things. I'm a father, I have 3 kids, I own an educational consulting company, and my geek claim to fame, though, probably is the 35 years of game mastering I've been doing, and the fact that I won the Iron GM regional competition twice in a row the last 2 years, and I'm going for my 3rd win.
My name is David Benavides, and I am a game master. I have won one regional Iron GM competition, and hopefully win another one.
My name is Don Higgins. I am a freelance illustrator, character creature concept creator.
My name is Ben Gerber. My geek claim to fame, I guess, would be designing several games. I've designed several role-playing games, Argyle and Crew, which is a sock puppet RPG, literally a sock puppet RPG. Something Went Wrong, which is a competitive RPG, and I've designed a couple of small board and card games as well.
I'm Jeffrey Talanian, and my geek claim to fame is that I am the publisher of Northwind Adventures, which is a small press publisher here in New England. I'm in New Hampshire.
I'm Adrian Benson. I live in Randolph, Massachusetts, and I don't really have a geek claim to fame, I guess. I've been gaming for a long time, if that counts for anything.
We publish a sword and sorcery role-playing game called Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. A little bit of a tongue twister there. We usually just refer to it as Hyperborea. Wearing a shirt right here with some gorgeous Russ Nicholson art. Russ is well known for his art and original D&D materials like the Fiend Folio and things like that. And so this is one of our newest shirts we just came out with for referees.
My name is John Wick, and my geek claim to fame is that I've been designing role-playing games for 20 years, which, you know, is debatable value in the face of everything else in the world.
My geek claim to fame, I'm Dave DeLuca. I've been playing since 4th grade, call it 1978. They started up a school group. All my friends were playing. Used my birthday money for my 9th birthday to buy the red box set for Dungeons and Dragons. Never looked back.
I designed a role-playing game for Legend of the Five Rings and 7th Sea and Orc World and so many games that I can't even remember all of them.
My name is Aaron Beeson, but everybody in the gaming community in the area calls me Buddha. My actual claim to fame is originally video gaming. I started doing competitive video gaming back when I was a teenager, and my highest record ever was 3rd place in the United States Battlefield Modern Combat Tournament.
I am Jay Libby. I have worked on things like Cyberpunk V3, I've worked on Doctor Who Adventures Time and Space, the Aliens and Creatures book, and I created G-Core, the superhero role-playing game, which I happen to bring with me. G-Core Prime.
Hey, my name's John Haskell. I've been a gamer since the 70s.
I'm not sure it's a claim to fame, but my name's Jonathan J. Reinhardt, and I'm the founder and host of the Wargaming Recon podcast.
I'm Tim Kask. I was the first full-time employee at TSR Hobbies. I'm responsible for the Dragon magazine, and truth be told, now that it's out, I'm the last surviving member of the creative team that made and shaped Dungeons and Dragons.
My name is Paulie Cooley. I'm an author of science fiction, horror, thriller, various awful tales about puppets behaving badly, and podcasting, and basically all around geek nerdishness.
I am Petra Jackal, and my geek claim to fame would probably be running Fiasco sessions. Fiasco is a game. It's a role-playing game that involves a lot of basically improv, where the people at the table make the story. And it devolves into mayhem and hilarity really, really quickly.
I'm Tamara. I have no geek claim to fame yet, so just kind of new to the gaming thing and exploring.
My name is Wes Carpenter, and I guess my claim to fame is I am one of the 2 or 3 people who started Total Confusion back in 1985.
My name is Andre Krupa, and I run immersive role-playing games using lighting and sound effects to create an immersive gaming experience to try to make the game exciting and fun for players. I run Game Soapbox Productions, which is a small publishing house. I'm presently working on a role-playing rule system. And I also work with Dark Phoenix Events, and people can book these kinds of high-end, high-production value games for their own functions.
So my name's Scott Legault, and I've been a gamer for 40 years. And about 2 years ago, me and my wife started a company called Dark Phoenix Events. And what we do is we bring games to people. So you hire us, we come in, I bring a professional DM, and we run a game at your location.
I like it. I like it. Here goes. Let me see your turn. Ooh. What's that nice number? Miller. 1 and 2. All right. And now. Oh,
These are the Millers. They're your typical family that played games on a Saturday, just like all of their friends. But the Millers have a secret. They play Dungeons and Dragons. The Millers are not bad people. They are just people that have learned bad habits. Don't be like the Millers. Don't get caught up in the gaming addiction. Tabletop games are a gateway drug to adventure and critical thinking. They will lead you on a path of exploration and mental development that will set you apart from the rest of society. Soon you too will see that the herd is bad and be free. Don't let this happen to you. Stay with the herd and be safe in your bubble of ignorance. Don't be like the Millers.
How did you get into tabletop gaming?
I had a $10 bill that I got from mowing lawns around the neighborhood when I was living in Iowa. And I went to, I was going to the mall to spend it on video games. And I walked into Spencer's Gifts, and there was a box on the wall that said Call of Cthulhu.
When I was 9, my mom bought the core AD&D books from a garage sale about 4 houses down the street where we used to live, and it was pretty much all downhill from there.
Every single page reaches up and hits you over the head and knocks assumptions out of your skull. And it's so brilliant and so subversive that everything that I've done as a game designer has been to try to live up to that, to the effect that that game had on me.
It was 1977, I would say. My next door neighbor, a kid named Aaron, had gone to California, where he hung out with a bunch of family who was playing a game called Chainmail. They were also making a transition to a new game called Dungeons & Dragons, and he brought back these binders full of paper and introduced me to the game.
I got the bug almost immediately and that became my primary hobby within 6 months probably.
I think I died 3 times the first night, and I had a blast. We fought a dragon, and I was hooked. That was it. I've never looked back.
I love the game. I mean, it expanded me. It made me come out of my shell. I was an introvert. I became an extrovert because of Dungeons & Dragons. It taught me how to plan. It taught me how to think outside the box. It taught me how to put myself into different roles and think about things from different perspectives.
I have a fascination with narrative and storytelling, and I love movies, I love books, and gaming is a way to be part of the authoring process and be included in the stories and the narratives that are being told.
It's just a fun escape, to decompress, get out of the busyness of life, and get into, you know, just that sort of camaraderie of sitting across the table from each other and having a good time.
My mother was stunned at the words I knew, just that I learned from the old Dungeon Master's Guide written by Mr. Gygax.
I was a shy kid, still have some of that shyness, very introvert. And I have to say that I was very lonely. I'm an only child. I was very lonely.
As a kid, you're kind of quiet, you're kind of timid, you're afraid to try new things and talk to people and stuff like that.
I became more social. I have learned to talk to people. Basically, it has improved my social skills tenfold.
Gaming has actually helped me with depression. It's expanded my knowledge base and my perspective base.
It's great for my imagination. I think it keeps me young.
I think it would be kind to say that I was a little socially maladroit when I was a freshman in college.
It allows me to get in contact with people who are like-minded. It helps me to relieve stress.
I game for the problem solving. I game for the mental exercise.
Just for example, SAT scores back in high school. I was a gamer. There's stuff that was on the SATs that I only knew because I was a gamer.
A good game ebbs and flows, and when you're well matched, you'll be up 1 minute and down the next, and I find that much more challenging than the chess I used to play or the checkers I used to play.
I learned to listen to players and get what they wanted, and then feed that back and give that to them, and that was an invaluable experience. That was strictly muscle.
Well, it's kept me my mind sharp and agile. That alone is worth it, you know, as I approach older ages.
And that has unbelievably helped me in my professional life.
Because what I do now is I sit down with people usually where there's warring factions in these departments of education and these agencies where you have people competing and there's competing interests, and I've gotten very good at weaving a narrative that they can all buy into. And that strictly comes from my training in gaming.
I'm a paramedic, and I think it's definitely allowed me to explore a side of my personality and interests that I haven't been able to, like, through my profession and other aspects of my life.
Gaming is for kids only, right?
Gaming's for my kids, but fortunately I'm there with them as well.
Who introduces the kids to the game? The parent who put it together.
When I was a little kid, I used to play pinochle with my grandmother. Now, my grandmother's not a kid. I was, but she wasn't. She played Chutes and Ladders with me. She played Monopoly with me. She played Clue, Stratego, Battleship. We played so many games that it was insane. The only game that she never really played with me was role-playing games. But almost any board game that there was, if I brought it home, she played it, and she was good.
Everybody needs to relax, and it's a great way to relax.
So many of us just come back to it. It's like an old friend, and it's just like it stays with you once you get into it.
Gaming is just like anything else. There's many different levels of gaming, from young kids to old kids at heart, old kids in age, but young kids at heart.
Unfortunately, she has passed away now, so I only have those memories. But now I have grandkids, 5 to be exact. That means I have grandkids that I get to play games with. I get to teach them how to play. I get to show them the joys that my grandmother showed me.
Well, I think gaming is a great tool for kids, and it is for kids, but I think it, like many other things, it's something that's very powerful for people who are adults to do. As a matter of fact, one of the things I do in my professional career, my educational consulting, is I work with executive teams at state education agencies and at school districts to actually build narratives around what they're committed to and fulfilling on objectives. And I use a lot of the tools I build in gaming to actually fulfill on people's real-world objectives. And if you look historically, not to get too historical or philosophical about it, if you look historically, people have looked to shaman and to storytellers and to bards and skalds and the people who tell stories for a long time to be the people who hold truth for the culture. And so I think in some ways, being a game master and gaming is a way to interact with that history and actually be people who tell stories that make a difference. And by the way, at the same time, yeah, it's a goofy hobby and we have fun and it's a way to pass a Saturday, a Saturday with your friends.
I think it's a great thing. My kids' game, I think it teaches teamwork, it teaches all kinds of life skills that kids have, and it keeps them away from the TV.
We all start gaming in one way or another, and there's definitely a market of games for kids, and there should be, because games can be many different things to many different people. And games at their best, you have fun and you learn something. So for a kid, you're gonna get in and you can play a game like Chutes and Ladders or whatever all day long, and that teaches you the core mechanics. It teaches you a lot of really important things about social play and how to interact with one another. Nowadays we have this explosion of kids with autism, and social interaction can be really hard for some of these kids, and adults too. I mean, you live with it all your life. So being able to bring that up in a way that makes them feel comfortable is great. So you have that basis, but then you broaden it out. So you have things that are really very in-depth. And I mean, they use them at the Naval War College down in Newport. They use a lot of gaming to teach tactics for our military leaders so that, heaven forbid, something should happen, these men and women are prepared because they played out the scenarios. They know what they should do because they played a game.
The fact is you do pick up a lot more in history and the background and across 5 Aprils, playing the Gettysburg campaign, you realize which units have good morale, which don't, and a lot of that's a reflection of what happened in the battles before. So you get all sorts of historical background that you may not have gotten. Plus, it reinforces what you've maybe read in the history book, but it's a lot fun, more fun to play the game and say, oh, that's why that's important.
I actually gamed with a former major in the U.S. Army who played, as he put it, he played a game in a trench during the first Desert Storm with artillery roaring overhead. He had been all over the country, all over the world, excuse me, playing in multiple languages, and it's really something, the people you meet playing this.
All right, everybody, hello and welcome to the Mythwids. I'm your host, Peter Bryant, and on this episode, we're interviewing Mike Pondsmith.
Really, I got to talk to that guy. A lot of what we do in the way of games at TAL has always been around finding something we're interested in and then saying, yeah, well, that would really make a really cool game. I wonder how the heck we're going to pull it off. And my favorite movie of all time is Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have been watching, Blade Runner and video and bad copies for years going, there's got to be a way to do this as a game. And at one point or another, it started to dawn on me that, yeah, it's about time. There's ways we can finally implement it. So basically, Cyberpunk sort of aggregated over time.
Okay.
And there we were. We got the first edition. We bring it into, excuse me, the first Gen Con we did. And we're going, oh my God, everybody is like stoked on this. And we didn't bring enough copies.
Okay, right.
So it was all of a sudden those things of, yes, you've succeeded, and far wilder than your dreams, and you're not ready for it yet.
Who in the gaming world inspires you?
I mean, my mentor is Mike Pondsmith, so I kind of, and he was the person that kind of got me into the industry like the right way. But there's a few that do it. Tim Kask is another one, and Frank Menzer is another one. That really just, you look at their stuff and you wanna do right by their legacy, and and Chris Gary started it all, but I never had the privilege to meet Gary, so.
I've been playing this game since I was 7 years old, and I was gonna meet the creator. I was gonna play D&D with Gary Gygax.
I have to go right back to my my childhood idol that I had the honor and privilege to work for a short time, which would be Gary Gygax. When I bought those original D&D books when I was a kid, and seeing his name in all those books, I always imagined him to be this, this great wise wizard.
When I turned 30, my family gave me this white box edition of D&D as my 30th birthday present. So this is really very cool. I believe this is a 5th edition from early 1975. So when I knew I was going to be playing with Gary, I knew I had to bring this so I could get him to sign it. And I remember waiting in line, and other folks had brought all kinds of different things, different books of his to sign and so forth. And I came up with this, offering it forward. And I remember him saying, "Oh wow, a white box set. I hadn't seen one of these in a while. I don't have mine anymore." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's kind of something." So then I said, "I'm one of the lucky winners who's going to be playing with you. So what version are we going to play today?" Thinking, is it going to be 1st edition or 2nd edition? Probably 1st edition. And he looked up at me from the table and said, "Well, yours." And this is the set that we played with that day.
When I got to meet him for the first time, which I believe was in 2006 at his home, it was such a great honor to meet him and spend time with him and game with him at his house. And so it's really like a surreal experience, I had that same sort of experience when I met Stan Lee once at a comic book convention. It was just like, geek nirvana, and you meet someone like that.
Well, without going into details, Greg Porter, John Wick, Mike Pondsmith. The three of them have created 3 of the games that have influenced me the most in life.
The gaming greats like Tim Kask and Frank Menzer and John Wick I met earlier this weekend. Those are some amazing people who have amazing ideas and have been doing this for a long time.
But yeah, the old school guys I nod to, of course. They're like hanging around with legends when we're here. It's kind of always that little awe to you, like, wow, this guy was around when it started.
I love Frank Menzer. He's great. The whole idea of having created something that has taken off and has affected so many people's lives is an amazing thing.
I'm your host, Peter Bryant. Joining me this week, like most weeks, is my co-host, Mike Kafis.
I hit it with my sword.
Also joining me this week is my other co-host, Jack Ballard.
Hello.
And our special guest this week, Frank Mincer.
Good evening.
Hey, Frank is a folk rock star. No, actually, Frank Mincer is an American fantasy author and game designer, and he was once a folk rock star, best known for his work on early materials for the Dungeons & Dragons fantasy role-playing game. So you started TSR, that was around, what, 1980?
January 20th, 1980. I was actually there on the 19th, and we didn't dare drive out onto the frozen Lake Geneva, although there it was. We played it safe and just walked out onto it. A friend of mine and I, it was a guy I'd known since Boy Scouts, practically, through that period. And he was working as a cabbie in Chicago and picked me up on the train, drove me up there, and I looked around and told him, and I told myself, do you believe this? I'm going to work for TSR in the legendary home of Dungeons and Dragons. You know, I made it to the top.
Right.
You know, in a way, almost like Mary Tyler Moore, you're going to make it after all, you know, and throw my dice up into the air or something. Who knows?
Right.
But yes, that day on the nose. However, I got hired as a technician, as an editor, even though I didn't have much experience as an editor. A little bit in high school and college, but nothing to really shake a stick at, because somebody else better had applied as an author to be as the writer's job, and I was no great shakes as either one. I was like, well, yeah, I do dungeons, you know, I design cool stuff based on what you guys published, and whereas this guy had serious talent, a guy named Tom Mulder. So we shared an office there for the first few months until they were hiring people and buying more furniture and doing stuff like that, you know, in the early days.
That's right about the time I started playing D&D. I was 10.
I was wondering if I made a mistake when they showed me the typewriter room.
Right.
They were still growing, and they had, I think it was 4 typewriters and more people than that, and a lot of them trying to write all at once. So they said the system was that you worked out your notes using pencil and paper or pen, and draw your maps out and so forth, and you reserve time in the typewriter room. And after all that, I remember going home and thinking, boy, is this a podunk 2-bit outfit or what?
Wow.
Within a couple of years, we had Hewlett-Packard mainframe with workstations. You know, well, a few years, but so they were ready to grow. You know, the money was there and the intent. But I happened to get in at that kind of ground floor level when they were actually sharing typewriters. I was a rank and file editor. Within that vein, I had to learn the ropes because, like I said, I had never done any editing. Almost got fired when they said to check all the spelling and everything on this card game, or the cards for this game called Dungeon, the classic Dungeon board game. They were doing it in this new, larger box version instead of the old little one. And I checked everything over and everything was cool. I gave it the go-ahead, but I almost got fired because the cards on one sheet were this way and the other sheet was oriented this way, and I didn't know about registration marks and how you'd line the sheets up to verify that they were laid out on the paper right. So if they had gone to press, the cards would have had part of one and part of the back, you know, sort of overlaid, if you follow me. Would have been totally hosed. They caught that one, but they yelled at me, and somebody stood up for me and said, look, he's really new and he doesn't know the first thing about this. He'll learn. He's smart. My first published work was The Chapel in Module B2, Keep on the Borderlands, by Gary Gygax, of course. When he sent that over, and that was my first meaty, real editing job of something important. And I went through that, and it was just clean up grammar, spelling, actually don't change anything, words, you know, spelling-wise, until you check with us, because Gary has this weird, archaic vocabulary and reference books, and also anything you don't understand, come ask, don't jump to conclusion. And I pointed out at one point that the Keep on the Borderlands referred to 2 different clerics, but didn't have a place where they worked. No church, chapel, nothing, you know. And shouldn't there be one? Shut up, sit down, grammar, spelling only, don't worry about it, etc. And in my spare time, in my best imitation at High Gygaxian, since Gary was everybody's idol at that point, a lot of us could, I wrote up a chapter. Sent it over by interoffice mail, and they almost, not quite, but almost got ready to throw my going away party because nobody had ever done something like this to a Gygax manuscript. You don't send him a note saying, you screwed up, here, you want to put this in to fix it? The thing came back with a few minor corrections, but with Gary scrawled G on it, saying, looks good, yep, missed this, use it. And everybody was like freaked. I had my interview with him as a new employee about a month later. Things were that crazy and busy at the time. And he was looking me over, oh, you're the one who had the balls, huh? Well, good work. And I've used this cleaned up story to explain to kids why anybody, any idiot, can pick at something. Lord knows you see that enough nowadays, and Facebook and other social media just magnify it. But the ones who stand out propose solutions in addition to picking at things.
Yeah.
And this is how you get somewhere in the world. And that's what I did there. Instead of just picking at it, offered that, and look what happened to me.
It's interesting. I don't have, some people have like heroes, like you talk about Frank Metzger, or like the original people, like the people in the beginning. I don't have any of those. It's more individuals I've played with that are, like I have a lot of respect for Andre Krupa, right? Because he took a whole tack of theater and added that to his games. And I've learned a lot watching him and playing with him and watching his dedication to mastering that particular
Chase
art.
him down the alley. He runs away from you, and looking back, he falls over a trash can, and he lands amid a pile of garbage, his ragged clothes clutching himself, and as you run up, he curls himself into a ball. I ain't done nothing. Here, take the money. And he thrusts the wallet out and tosses it. Take it. I don't want no trouble. I ain't done nothing. I ain't done nothing.
Shut up. You want me to hit him with his nose?
You ain't gonna hit me. Just take the money there, mister.
Backhand him across the face.
Hey! You ain't got no need to hit me. Just take my money and go.
You don't want your money.
What do you mean you don't want my money? You want my money? What do you want?
You want to know where Sticky Jack is.
Sticky Jack, you gonna make me a rat?
Hit him again.
No, you, you
I
ain't
think
gonna
that's
slap
what I
me.
need a GM that actually really cares about what they're doing and they're committed to having quality experience for their players. Those are the people I admire.
John Kovalik, who you guys probably know from like Dork Tower, and he illustrates a lot of the Munchkin games and things like that. He also is an inspiration, and the reason that he's an inspiration for me is when my mother was dying of cancer, well, actually, excuse me, just before she started dying of cancer, she had started reading Dork Tower, and she finally understood why I laughed so hard at it and why I enjoyed it so much. So when she got diagnosed again with her second round of cancer, I asked John to, if he would mind doing a get well card for her, because I thought that she would really enjoy that. I mean, when she got into it, she really zeroed in and just really got into it hardcore. So he wrote back and said, yeah, I'll totally do it. So I think it was like a couple weeks later, we got the diagnosis that it was going to be terminal, and I wrote back to him and said, listen, she's going to die, and you don't have to do the get well card anymore. There's no point in it. And he's like, no, I'm still going to do something. I said, okay, well, all right, whatever you want to do. And his get well card turned into a sympathy card for me.
I think when my physical condition became public and the outpouring of support, that would be it. I'm just an old retired gamer, and only people my age know what the name means. But when all these people that I never knew was joking with my new doctor, that I've been prayed for in churches, temples, synagogues, cathedrals, ashrams, mosques, the Mormon Tabernacle, by strangers that just want me to get better. That's a pretty humbling moment.
Flash forward to 2013's Gen Con. Sorry, I'm probably getting a little misty here. Flash forward to Gen Con 2013. Out of like the blue, it was announced that he was actually going to be at the Paizo, P-A-I-Z-O. You guys know what I'm talking about. That their booth. He was signing copies of the Pathfinder Munchkin. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm just going to swing by. I just want to say hi to him and thank him. So I get to the booth and, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, do you remember making a sympathy card for a guy whose mom was dying of cancer? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that was me. And he's like, oh my God. And it was a big hug fest. And anybody who was within earshot who could hear, you know, lots of awes. But it proved to me how tight the gaming community is and how much we really lean on each other. Not just for like, hey man, I'm thinking about using this mechanic, can I get your perspective on it? It's also a case of, listen man, I'm going through a really rough time and gaming is helping me get through that. And then, you know, either a game designer, game artist, or just another gaming member goes, yeah, okay, totally, I can completely relate to that. Hey, listen, you know, what can I do for you?
This is a small extended family for me coming to this con. I never see most of these people except for 3 or 4 days a year, and it's like we're together all the time whenever we get together at a con.
The friends, the people that I've met have been fantastic. Everybody is welcoming and open-minded.
Gamers might be a little different, but there's very few jerks in the gaming community. For the most part, you meet a lot of really nice people who, if you're not a gamer, they'll show you the ropes.
Probably seeing the kids, the new ones coming out. I usually get the old guy at the table award because I've been playing since '78. It's nice seeing kids getting into it.
A few years ago, my wife and I took a river cruise. We went on a Viking river cruise, and when gamers in Amsterdam and London found out I was going to be coming over, it was like, oh, let's get together. Oh. The guys in London wanted to have a one-day game-a-thon, and I guess they were going to have me sit in a chair so people would walk by and look at me. I don't know. But my wife said, absolutely not. Only none of that, and I already told them that. But I did meet a bunch of gamers in London, and I did meet a bunch of gamers in Amsterdam. And knowing I've had that kind of effect on not just the Midwest, and not just the U.S., but we've had the effect we've had across the globe is pretty satisfying. And sometimes you got to fight those down so you don't get a swelled head. I remember sitting in the second Hobbit movie, and the realization washed over me that we made this possible. There never would have been millions of dollars spent on a movie on The Hobbit if we hadn't made fantasy sailing. And that's one of my lay down on a pillow night things that I tell myself. I said, you know, we changed society.
God. Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Oh my God. In the 80s?
Oh God, yes. Especially back in the dark days when we were all evil devil worshippers.
Well, thank you and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. Daily, nearly moment by moment, young people are bombarded by distorted visual images and twisted music messages that are saturating their minds and, yes, sabotaging their futures.
Some are calling it a war on the children.
Young people's imaginations have become the battlefield. Whatever gets their imagination gets their worship. Whatever gets their worship gets their heart.
The media bombards kids today with messages, many with satanic overtones.
Satan's not stupid. He understands that kids today are visual, and so he's making a play for excitement
for total involvement of the senses.
Today's generation sees an abundance of occultic symbols. The Thundercats get their power from a magic sword called the Sword of Omen. Phil Phillips, expert on occultic influences in cartoons, explains.
Cultic heroes are being lifted up as gods before our children, and our children are receiving them as such. One of them is He-Man.
Ghosts, spirits, magic, occultic symbols all seem to make cartoons an indoctrination for a generation of kids into the occult. Dungeons and Dragons. Some claim it's a simple, harmless game. Yet suicides, murders, and robberies have been linked to this game. Pat Pulling explains what happened to her son, a victim of Dungeons and Dragons.
He died because he became too involved with the game Dungeons and Dragons. His personality became one with the character that he was living at the time in the game, and he took his life because of the scenario he was playing at the time he died.
Dungeons and Dragons emphasizes black and white witchcraft. It creates a world of fear and death. Dr. Gary North says, Dungeons and Dragons is the most effectively, most magnificently packaged, most profitably marketed, the most thoroughly researched introduction to the occult in man's recorded history. This influence raises important questions. What will happen to the world if it loses its youth? What will happen to parents if they lose their children? What will happen to children if they lose their souls?
Mike Palla had gotten hooked on Dungeons and Dragons, a controversial game of witchcraft where players take on the roles of both good and evil beings. Unfortunately for Mike, the border between reality and fantasy was too easily crossed, and before he knew it, his mind had become a prisoner of his own imaginary world. The dark shadows of the day soon crept into Mike's dreams as wild, grisly nightmares haunted his sleep.
I would see just horrific, awful, just bloody and horrible creatures hacking at my friends, and I would stand there and watch my friends as they would be just hacked apart.
His mother's prayers are what motivated Mike to attend a Christian fellowship group one day at school. What he found there was a love and acceptance that began to penetrate the darkness in his life. It was after a weekend retreat with the group that Mike finally surrendered to the love of God.
Some of you watching this program say, listen, this stuff, they're just games. Dungeons and Dragons, they're just games. These rock musicians, it's just a song, it's games. The cartoons, they're just sort of make-believe. Are they really things like demons? Well, the answer is you better believe it.
People like Pat Robertson are the anti-gamers. They are bent on destroying the gamers in society because they recognize that gaming creates critical thinking. And we all know that critical thinkers are dangerous. They just might use logic and reasoning to solve a problem instead of following along in ignorant obedience.
As we all know, Dungeons & Dragons went through the, it's demonic, it's satanic, and it's occult phase back in the 80s.
I had people that I knew that I was friends with, or thought I was friends with, and they found out I was a gamer, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, where are the horns?
I was thrown out of Bible study at 3 different churches because I played Dungeons and Dragons. My father thought that I was worshiping Satan and actually burned my gaming books when I was younger.
Oh yeah. I survived through the 80s with the, D&D is a tool of the devil. My mother threw all my stuff out at one point. I had to go before the school board in high school and prove my point to have a high school gaming class.
Originally, my parents used to judge me a little bit for all the video gaming. The standard, you'll hurt your eyes, don't sit so close to the TV or anything like that. But when they realized that I was actually doing it and enjoying it and having fun, they encouraged it and let me go to game stores and things like that, compete in tournaments. And according to my dad, it was cheaper than crack, so he was all for it.
My father was a wood carver and woodworker. He was heavily into realism and history and animals. And when I saw Star Wars for the first time in 1977, suddenly everything became about monsters and aliens and things of that nature. He was very disappointed. But before he passed, he saw how I was incorporating history through fantasy, animals through fantasy, realism. Instead of just cartoons, how do you draw these fantastic creatures realistically? And he accepted what I was doing.
Those kinds of things were there, and even from our own peers that were going to certain churches, would not join in the games and would basically try and talk us out of it because we were selling ourselves to the devil.
My parents used to criticize me quite a lot because they thought all I did was sit around and do nothing. And then once I started getting invited to conventions as industry guests, my parents started taking it a little bit more seriously. Then they saw the first book, and that was like my old Guardian Universe Fusion book. And they're like, oh, you're serious. And my business partner, he and I grew up gaming together, so it only seemed right that we did that, and our families were pretty surprised by the stuff we put out, so.
No, actually, it's always been a positive experience. My parents didn't really understand gaming, but they were never, we got never forbade to play the game.
No, other than the fact that my wife's bitterly disappointed and I never made good money at it. She was extremely supportive.
Even at work in my professional capacity, it's never been a, they're curious about it. What is it? What do you do? How do you do it? But it's never been a negative reaction.
Neither of my children are gamers, sadly enough, but my sons two are avid gamers. And to give you, they're 3 years apart, and the younger one thinks she can play anything the older one plays. So I started them on the WizKids Pirates game, rolling simple dice and that. Well, when she went in to be tested for kindergarten, they always do these assessments, how well they can read. Well, she was giving the lady the answers before she drew the line under the addition problems. The lady turned to my daughter-in-law and said, "Where'd she learn how to do that? That's pretty good." Without thinking, she said, "Dice." And he said, "Oh, no, not craps or anything. She plays dice. She plays games with her grandpa. They use dice, and she's learned to add them up with dice." She thought, "Oh my God, I'm teaching my kid craps or something."
I have had professional colleagues who look at my Facebook feed, have asked me, "What is this Iron GM thing? What is this? Why you're going to a convention, and what are you doing at the convention?" Right? And so I've had to explain gaming in a context that doesn't leave them with a weirdness about me, since I want them to hire me as a consultant, and I have to establish my professional, keep my professional reputation in place. But I've gotten better and better at that over the years, right? And now, instead of a defensive action, I've actually now incorporated that fully into my I actually speak it now as, that's one of the reasons why I'm better at my job, because of this kind of thing. Almost to the point where I can almost justify gaming conventions as professional training. Almost.
Now, I have met so many thousands of hobby gamers all over the world, and I've been blessed to have been kind of stapled onto the side of a precious memory as a hanger-on here, like a useless appendix. But people come to me and say, in my formative years, I met people and we became friends, and all our heads blew open all the same time and all in the same way. And in experiencing this established this bond, this brotherhood of gaming. And we don't, Frank, I hate to tell you this, but we don't really play your game much anymore. We're doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs. Literally, I ran into a CEO who was opening a branch in Italy, but he was from India. So he was an Indian chief, literally. It was just amazing. And all of them look at me as associated with this precious time in their hearts, in their minds. And it wasn't me. I happened to be the name on the thing. It was what Redbox achieved. It was the creation of Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, and the many who came right behind that. You just can't list them all. I've been blessed to recently be able to get to know Mark Miller a little bit, who invented Traveler, which was such a crucial influence on me in the 70s. And it turns out he was like only my age when he was doing this stuff, because I was a late bloomer. But I've been so lucky to have facilitated this for so many people. But I didn't create that. You did. You did at the table. using the magic that I took part in communicating to you, that Gary did, that so many of us, that Blix and the crew here are communicating to you, and so many others through this medium, all in our own little ways. I played my role along the way.
Where do you see gaming in 50 years? Like, where do you see it? Do you see, I'm going to allow you to right now to make a prediction, like, you know, some weird thing, some new type of technology, or an integration or hybridization of technologies that we don't even have right now. I mean, obviously computers and the internet is something current, but where do you see anything?
Last time I was in Italy, they asked me something similar, and I described a digital piece of art that used the kind of sensors they use to analyze reactions to commercials, fault track your eyes, your heat signature and things, and layers in the digital art changed so that the art changes so that you're the most satisfied with it.
That's a great idea.
The software could be there right now. It's art intensive, but with the capabilities of digital graphics and a really capable creator, something like that could mushroom out at any point. But that's near future stuff. In the technical end, I can't imagine it. It will probably involve a real light, non-obtrusive version of Tracy Hickman's Void or Oculus Rift or other virtual reality devices and environments, things like that. But one thing I'm sure of that we have discovered through the computer game age is that we get fascinated by toys, and we go running outside and we play with our toys, but eventually we come home, and tabletop gaming is where you're looking at real people and maintaining that digital contact, that tactile, the whole sensory experience, and not just the digital interface. And that will continue to be the home base as we move out and try these other new avenues, play with our new toys. We'll keep coming back to perhaps greatly digitally enhanced, like I said, audio environments, as well as the visuals that you could produce with, who knows if we'll make it to holograms. That's been theorized. We still are still not there. So, but regardless of the tech, I'm sure that we'll keep coming back to each other.
Best game to introduce a new player to?
So for me, with role-playing games, simple is best, because you're going to be throwing a lot at them at one time.
It really depends on the player. There are plenty of games like Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne, other board games along those lines, which are simple to play, are sort of variations on a theme of something that's already familiar, which will allow new players to sort of hit the ground running.
I would honestly say that Catan is not a bad way to go. It does explore resource management. It's more than just roll and move. It's also more social.
It just depends on personality. I tend to be a little bit more reserved and shy, a little socially uncomfortable. So for me, like the tabletop games, like the board games, are really easy because it's less of my personality that I have to put into it. I think the RPG experience last night was an exploration of that, which stretched my comfort level a little bit, but was good.
Ticket to Ride also falls into that same category.
I'd probably sit down with Ticket to Ride. It's a simple game. You fill contracts, you build trains, you build rail lines.
The game almost doesn't matter. It matters that you have people around you that you're gonna have a good time with. And that first couple of experiences, I think, are absolutely essential. That you enjoy it and that people don't take it too seriously. There is a part of the subculture, I think, that gets so wrapped up in the winning the game aspect of it that they get hyper competitive. And I think that's a thing that's changing. I'm finding a lot more people that are like me, professionals, people who are executives and who own companies and stuff like that, who are engaging in the hobby, but you still have that. And so you want to make sure that a new person experiences sort of the best of the thing, so that then they can, if they have a bad encounter, they can recover from that.
Ticket to Ride is a very quick and easy game to set up and get playing. First of all, players each choose
a coloured set of trains. In this case, we're going to play a 2-player game. One player is going to choose red, one player is going to choose blue. They also choose an associated coloured score token and place it in the bottom corner there. Now it says 100 points, obviously you don't start the game at 100 points. That's representative of 0. As you're playing the game, each round you'll get points and you move your little marker along this track around the edge of the board. And that's used to ensure that when you get to the end of the game, you've got the minimal amount of scoring that you have to do. Now each player gets 45 trains of their particular colour. Next, you take all the train cards, which have a variety of coloured trains on the side, and you then deal 4 cards to each player. You then turn over the top 5 cards. Now these train cards are for the players, they can look at them, but they shouldn't be showing other players. Then you take these ticket cards and you deal 3 to each player. Now Ticket to Ride is a game all about points. There are 3 ways in the game to make points, and they are claiming a route, which means putting your trains on a particular route, and taking the associated score. So that one's a 3-train route, that'd be worth 4 points. If red took a 6-train route, that would be worth 15 points. And so on. The second is to complete a ticket. And this is what these ticket cards are for. So the first ticket that you've got is Duluth to Houston. So what this is saying is if we had... Sorry, it's very noisy, isn't it? If we had trains on routes between Duluth and Houston, if we had trains that had claimed those routes, we would have got 2 points for that route, 1 point for that, 2 for that, 2 for that, 1 for that. We would also then gain an extra 8 points for the route between those 2. Now we would not reveal that until the end of the game. These cards remain hidden at all times, and it's part of the strategy that other players don't know which tickets you've completed and which tickets you haven't. All they know is where your trains are on the board. It's important to keep in mind that whilst completing a route here will gain you 8 points, if you fail to complete that route by the end of the game, you lose 8 points. So while some of these high scoring ones may look like really good options, if you don't complete the route, they can really come back to bite you. The last way to earn points is this bonus card. At the end of the game, whoever has the longest consecutive train, number of carriages, that's counted. Sorry, it's counted by the number of carriages. Whoever has the longest train is deemed the winner of the longest train award, and they get 10 points. The game ends when any player gets down to 2 trains or less remaining. When that happens, all other players get to complete 1 more turn, and then the points are tallied.
RPG, strategy, or TCG?
RPG all the way.
Why?
Because I hate linear gaming. I like the idea that you can change the environment you're in, you can mess with everything, you can sit on the wall, you can take the wall apart.
But my interest is really in character development. It's in the narrative arc. It's in the storytelling and the creation of stories and surprising people with stories, and that you don't really get that in the other mediums.
RPGs I used to do a lot, even in college, but you know, you get married, you move around, you get a career, and there's really not that much time. And now that I'm basically a full-time author, it ain't gonna happen very often.
I just don't have the time in my life to run or participate in a weekly or monthly RPG.
Part of that is also that combined, I'd rather work with people cooperatively, and in RPGs there's more of an opportunity to have cooperative narratives where everyone's building the story together.
For me, the big draw to gaming is the ability to kind of use it to explore different aspects of military history, and that just tends to be more strategy-oriented games.
Strategy for me. I just like the whole unorthodox method because you can sit there and make a plan and execute it however you want. With RPGs, it's kind of linear. You have to follow a story and a set path most of the time, and if the GM's not prepared for random shenanigans, the game can fall apart pretty quickly unless you have an experienced GM. TCGs is too much of an element of luck, or the I have more money so I can buy these cards and I automatically win because I have the power deck.
It becomes a lot of luck of the draw, and there's not a lot to mitigate that.
With strategy, it equalizes the playing field, because if I don't have the resources but I have the technique, I can still beat somebody with an unlimited wallet.
What gaming convention is your favorite to attend?
I did enjoy Gen Con, which is the biggest gaming convention in the summer, but it's huge.
Yeah, if you've got friends there, you know, cool, you might run into them, and that's always a treat. But at the same time, it is dense, and it is a lot to absorb, it's a lot to handle, so it's something to consider.
I go to Gary Con every year. Like I said, I used to work for Gary, so after he passed away, his children started a convention in his honor, and I've been going to that. We're on our 9th year now. It's crazy to think that it's been 9 years.
Gary Con is going back, seeing old TSR folks. It's a commitment I made to the family. When Gary died, I told them that as long as I'm physically capable of attending, even if it's just to wave at people and smile my gummy grin when I'm too old to game, I'll come to the con.
Make sure everybody's got his fountains of blood.
Hang on, Sam, so we're not
But I used to sell my beard for charity regularly down at Gothicon back in the early 80s. And one time only, I let them shave it off right there at the con. But what disturbed me is this one gal kept buying all my hair every year. And so I decided, oh, better put the brakes onto that one.
It has an atmosphere, and I go to 5 every year, all right? And they're all great cons for one thing or another. I love coming here. Gen Con's Gen Con, it is what it is. But Gary Con has a collegial, family-type atmosphere, like, hi, we're all got our arms around each other all the time. You could leave your pile of stuff over in a corner all day, and the only person that would have likely touched it would have been somebody with a badge on that said they worked for the con, just making sure you hadn't forgotten it. Nobody will touch it. There's a room with a mound of games. There must be 300 games. Hey, you're bored? Go find a game. And yeah, they don't bother checking them out. Bring it back when you're done. And plus, they have tableside delivery of beer and food. Yeah, no con, I gotta do that. But it's just an atmosphere. Plus, it's a tribute to the guy that started all this. He was my friend. In some ways, he was my mentor. So I feel like I'm paying him back, and I'm doing something for the family.
It'd be Total Con.
Total Con. Total Con?
Total Con.
Total Con.
Absolutely Total Con.
Total Confusion.
Total Con.
Well, Total Con, of course. You know, I know the people running it. I know the people come to it. So there's a certain amount of, it's like my familiar ground for me.
All the people here are cool. It's small enough that it's quaint and large enough that there's a lot to do.
Total Confusion has a little over 1,000 people. Gen Con has a little over 60,000 people.
I met my wife here at Total Con 15 years ago. We were gamers. We came to a point in our lives where we were a little more comfortable, and we kind of decided what we're going to do with our extra money, and we decided to game. So we've been going to cons here and there. This year we're going to Gary Con. I've been to Gen Con a couple times.
I've been going here since I was 16. I know a lot of people here, and it's a very familiar environment for me.
This is home. This is home, where I feel really comfortable here.
You know, a lot of people make it their big vacation, and it's very family friendly, which is another great aspect of it. But then at the same time, you can have someone who's going to try it, who's been like, I heard from so-and-so about this thing. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to come. So they come to Total Con and they try and maybe they play in your game. And so then you get that new person, so you can kind of grow the hobby. I'm all about trying to expand the community and be more welcoming for people, and Total Con does that. They check off every base, and they hear, and they say, please come, we want you to come, we want you to be part of our family. And that's really what it feels like.
You know, when you sit down to run a game and you see that the people who are playing in your game are people that you've played in games with here before, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it may be, it's fun to have that experience and, you know, reconnect.
The convention like this survives because of the con attendees. We have a dedicated base of fans that come back every year. Every year we get new fans that are coming in. We now have children whose parents came to the original TotalCon and came here as kids, now coming back to game. And so what happens is every generation of gamers knows that they're welcome at the convention, and we have something for everybody. So they always know that, you know, I started playing the Pokemon card game when I was 5 or 6, but now they have Magic, or now they have these other board games I want to try, and we welcome everybody with open arms.
And one of the things I love about TotalCon is, although I'm a historical wargamer, and it's not strictly a historical wargaming convention, you have the choice to try something that you wouldn't normally do, so you can get out of your comfort zone.
No one here is going to judge me because I like Warhammer as opposed to playing Infinity or opposed to playing Puffing Billy board games. They're like, oh, you play that? I play this. And you can have a conversation. And you know, I don't really know what he's talking about, but it's a nice, friendly conversation. And stuff like that is what brings people back every year.
Hey folks, Mel the Train Shooter, and it is April. It is start for the biggest jolly of the year. It is Salute. Now, we are in the Excel Centre in London. It is packed with traders, with tables, and up until about an hour ago, it was packed with gamers, but it's after dinner. They've all buggered off for a bit of a bacon butty, you know what I mean, a drink and a cool down because it's a bit warm in here. So it's calming down, we're getting a bit of space around the tables, so I'm going to take you on a tour of the tables of Salute. So, shall we? Let's crack on. Okay, we've got a foreground table. Now, I believe this is for Hammer Slammers. Yeah, an absolute beautiful piece. Put together by Adam at Foreground. Yeah, I nipped down to see this before it actually came up here, and it is absolutely lovely. Hello, buddy.
Hey,
yeah, you got it built in time then? Go on, lift us the lid off, show us the inside. That's a beast of a model, mate. You've done a cracking job on that.
Cheers, kindly.
The man himself, give us a smile.
Hey,
yes, the Hulk Destroyer. It is monstrous, isn't it?
I think that was really important. Balance is normally the way to play.
It's not a table, but
you can min-max a little bit more of the drop thing, drop zone, but I still think that's still good.
Let me look at the detail on this. Yeah? And then... Hey, mate.
Hey, all right.
You created this, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Genius. He doesn't make terrain, but he makes damn good models. Nice one, Dave. Right. Come on, guys. Let's go see some proper terrain. Excuse me. Can I squeeze in and just film that very quickly?
No worries.
Yeah. Now, you see this little frozen monstrosity? This ugly beast of a table? Absolute, utter rubbish. I can say that because it was on my kitchen table about 4 days ago when I was finishing it off. Yeah, this is my little side project. I did it for Foreground for the, Fosgrave guys, and this was on the kitchen table. It was my recovery project. One thing I'm really proud of, can I move that little wall just quickly? Oh, don't worry, I just want to show them the inside. They are very nice indeed.
Basically tracking the credits.
That's brilliant. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. A little orchard over at this side. And the river there. Yeah. Beautiful work, mate. Absolutely beautiful work. Looks like a Japanese temple.
Yeah, I've got one.
And that looks like Japanese, that looks like a Japanese foreground terrain. Could be Sarissa. Holy hell, what have we got here? Oh yeah, Mel's in his element. We've got Jurassic Park, check it out. Yeah. They're not true. I could buy those things at B&M. That's not terrain.
There we go, you get the gate straight on. Get on your foot.
Let me check this out. I keep noticing little details. Oh, don't knock that over, Boast, for God's sake, they'll kill you. Yeah, little skeleton in the cage. He's not having a good day, is he? Yeah, simple hill. Yeah, simple river sections. But overall, truly beautiful table.
If you could game with any person, living or dead, who would you game with?
Orson Welles.
Socrates.
John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe. I like to see that dynamic if they are directly opposed to each other and I'm just sitting in the middle watching it unfold.
I'm gonna go with The Rock and Bono.
It would have to be Caligula. Everything that I've read about the man shows me that he was a nutcase, but a nutcase who liked to have fun. I can imagine playing a role-playing game with him. I can imagine playing strategy games with him. I would love to LARP with the guy. Oh my God, that would be insane, LARPing with Caligula.
I think I would game with President Obama.
Honestly, one of my biggest inspirations in gaming and the reason I chose to go down the path of Warhammer for myself was Robin Williams. Actually used to be a Warhammer player.
I think also Robin Williams would be a trip. I've actually heard from people who've been at conventions with him and people who gamed with him that he was hilarious.
And I liked the comedy. I liked the fact that he was very hands-on, and I actually got to watch him play a game once when I was younger, and that was it. I was just hooked from that point on.
You know, it's funny because you know a lot of people talk about that that Vin Diesel is a big gamer. So I've always been curious to see what it would be like to be in one of the games with him because I know he's he's such the powerhouse action movie star, and yet he he's a gamer too.
I know he's a gamer, and I think he's a great actor. Vin Diesel.
He's written a few introductions to books. I think they came out with the 30-year anniversary book to D&D, and he wrote the introduction to it.
I think it would be really cool to game with Gary Gygax.
Gary Gygax.
Gary Gygax, easily. Just to see the original master at work. I've heard stories and just would love to.
This is not like a gaming personality, it's not a famous person, but I would love to be able to game with my grandfather again. As a kid, him and my dad taught me how to play chess, and if it wasn't for chess and checkers, nothing else would have happened. And unfortunately, he's not here anymore, but his memory and his presence is strong with me.
What is your favorite tilt?
Advanced Squad Leader. World War II infantry combat is a particular area of interest of mine, and the rules for Advanced Squad Leader, there's almost no aspect of World War II ground combat that Advanced Squad Leader doesn't touch on, have a rule for, or simulate.
I like Call of Cthulhu because it's a very simple game. It's a game that you can, especially for conventions, because it's like, okay, roll percentile dice. It's very simple to read the character sheets. If I'm doing a one-off scenario, I want to build a story, and I care about the story, but I don't want to embed it in all these mechanics and rules and stuff. Call of Cthulhu is simple, easy, dirt easy to play.
I don't really have a favorite. I think it depends on what's new, what we've been able to get to the table, and what holds my interest. At the moment, it's a game called Scythe, which is just a fabulous alt-1920s steampunky kind of game that almost plays itself. I mean, you have a lot of important decisions to make, but the board and the game directs your play in a way that I haven't seen with other games yet.
Feudality by Tom Wong. Infinite replayability, tongue firmly in cheek, plenty of opportunities to screw the other players or be screwed by them. It has everything a multiplayer game amongst a group of friends needs.
It would have to be, Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
D&D still has a place in my heart, and I still love Dungeons and Dragons.
I like the Pathfinder Society. I've been playing Pathfinder. I think it's the best evolution of the D&D games. I'm enjoying that sort of collective narrative over, multiple countries and multiple things, and everyone's playing the same scenarios, right? So that's a very interesting aspect of that.
I would have to say Star Trek by Last Unicorn Games. That game created in me a sensation. It was awesome. We ran a campaign in that. We ran several campaigns in that game. But the last campaign that I ran, I posted the campaign up on this place called Obsidian Portal, and the game won. Our campaign won Campaign of the Month. It was incredible. We still talk about the games today. We still joke about the horrible things that we did to each other during those games.
Probably Munchkin, just because it is easy to do. When Hurricane Ike knocked out all the power in Houston for a couple of weeks, all we had was Guinness and Munchkin. So we played Munchkin religiously. We went into a van and played it actually in the van with the air conditioning. It was 97,000 degrees outside, and it was just fun.
Are there any games you would never play?
Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. It was an abomination.
Yes, and I won't say their names because I don't want to offend people I know in the industry.
Diplomacy. Any game that relies on somebody getting screwed in the end to declare a winner is not my kind of game. You must have a, if all the games that if I washed up on a desert island with one game in a waterproof box and it was diplomacy, I'd throw the son of a gun back into the ocean. I would not play it. Hate that game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Piratopoly, which is a Monopoly version that both of my kids played for about 2 years each, and they're 2 years apart, so that was 4 years of playing pirate-themed Monopoly. I don't know if I could take any more of that.
I'm not a big LARPer. I wouldn't LARP.
Never play? No. No, I would try anything. There's games that I don't enjoy, but there's nothing that I would never refuse to play.
I would try everything once, just like food. I mean, I like it, but I'll try it once, just to see how it goes.
For me, as much as I love gaming, it's the people I'm playing games with. So I could be sitting there counting ice cubes, and if I'm doing it with people who I like to spend time with, it doesn't matter.
I'm not a huge miniature gamer. I've tried a couple, but it's not really my thing, except for Car Wars. That's a caveat. Car Wars is fabulous.
Probably. I can't think of one. I don't, like I said, I don't tend to like hack and slash games or okay, you got 12 orcs over here and 12 knights over, and they're gonna fight, and you have to, you know, sort of the squad, you have to know squad leader level of rules, like, well, the reach of that weapon is 4.6 inches, and at the second segment, well, you know, I don't quite, I just don't get any satisfaction from that. So it's not won't play, though. If all my friends said, hey, this is, like, for instance, I don't like Car Wars. Most of the people in my social group, they love this game called Car Wars, where you modify cars and you do models, and I just have zero interest. But if that's what everyone's doing that night, I would play Car Wars, right?
And what was the saddest or most disappointing gaming moment, and why?
Okay, I don't know if it's necessarily saddest, but it stuck with me, and it's the most disturbing thing I ever dealt with, and my brother is to blame. So we were playing, just him and I, playing Dungeons & Dragons. I didn't have a lot of experience. This is when I was first getting started. And I was playing a fighter, and I'm going on a dungeon delve, and there's dwarves down there. Okay, no big deal, dwarves. You know, I tend to think, okay, dwarves, hey, they're friendly. Well, they have kids. Okay, fine, they have kids, no big deal. Well, the kids start hitting me with sticks. I'm like, I'm wearing full chainmail, and he's like, well, they're sticking them between the links, and they're poking you, and you're taking 1 damage every round. I was first level, okay? First level fighters don't have a lot of hit points. So effectively, I'm dying due to sticks poked at me through my chainmail, which they just automatically hit every round, and I'm dying.
My most disappointing gaming moment was actually last year, where I finally got to a tournament in DC. I was happy. I was hanging about with a bunch of my friends, and we were all having a good time. And that's where I got the call that my father fell deathly ill. And while it was very sad, it was nice to see the entire community, when they found out about it, took care of everything. They packed up my army. They shipped it back home. I got condolence cards from everybody. They wanted to make sure that I was okay. And at that point, that's where I knew that while it was my saddest moment in gaming, because it was a tournament I looked forward to all year long, that the community was behind me 100%. And that's where I knew that the gamers were my family.
I'm like trying to negotiate. I'm trying to figure out a way to get them to stop. Nothing works. So I have to go into combat, which sucks, especially as a kid. So I go into combat, and I start attacking the kids, and I feel horrible doing this. And my brother's freaking reveling in making me do this. And as I kill one of the kids, and I'm not even joking, this isn't a case of I hit them and they went unconscious, I freaking killed them. He does an impersonation of one of them screaming for their mother, as they die. That alone has actually had me screwed up for years. And I know it's fantasy. I know it's not real, but it's the mental image.
You know, maybe when you run a game that you feel like you could have run a particular situation better, or you could have done things differently or reacted to what your players wanted to do differently.
I had one scenario where I was very excited about a character we were talking about, and the GM, I thought, did such a terrible job at the game that it completely spoiled that particular. And I had really got my heart and soul into it. I was excited about it, but I was like, okay, this isn't going to work, right? And the other time was as a GM where I made a mistake. I tend to play very hyper-realistic narratives. I try to build very deep emotional inflection and create bonding between the characters. And there was a scene where a character who was a cleric, a priest, right, of a god, got captured by an evil sorcerer, and he tortured her. And the player, Peter, who was playing that character, I did such a good job of playing that out, he literally couldn't play that character again.
But it has actually instituted a rule in my games, which is you do not kill kids. It's not even a case of like, under a circumstance, no, you do not kill kids. If you kill kids, I will show you the door personally, and you are never welcome back at my table. It's a hard rule for me.
But I still try and figure out how to do that, right? How do you include things that are real issues that people deal with? Like when you read stories like Game of Thrones, that's horrible stuff happens, right? Just horrible. And many sort of fantasy stories have those horrible elements, but they're either completely hidden, like in a Disney-esque Cinderella kind of, where there's horrible stuff happening, but it's all in the background. You never see it. To the Game of Thrones, where people are just getting raped, killed, murdered, slaughtered, right, left and right. And there's some place in between. If you know the people very well, like my campaigns, they're a little more like Game of Thrones, right? But in cons, a little more on the Disney side, right? To just be more careful, right? Never quite go all the way Disney, but but don't quite go Game of Thrones, because you don't know who's there and what they're, how they're going to be affected by what you're talking about. And if you're a good storyteller, you're sucking people into that world, and then there's a certain amount of not to get too big a deal about it, right? We're still talking about a game. People need to be responsible for themselves, right? But you are sucking people into a world you're creating, and you have to be a little responsible for that, what you're creating. So
that's the beauty of role-playing games as compared to video games, where video games have defined parameters in which the game must be played. Role-playing games, tabletop style games are so open-ended that it's collaborative creation between the game master and the players.
Finding out Gary had died really hit me hard, because I hadn't seen him in a few months prior to that. That hit me real hard, because I hadn't had a chance to say goodbye.
I think every gaming moment I've had has been a learning lesson. Maybe gaming with my daughters when they were younger, and they kill innocents in a game, and kind of like, you don't want to kill people. Yeah, but we have to kill them. It's like, no, you don't have to kill anybody. I think that would just the realization that kids are so used to video games that there's no repercussions for what they do, but in an RPG you can hold them accountable. So it kind of scared me when my kids were callous about human life. So
there were tournaments. In particular, I was entering the miniatures painting tournament, and to realize that it was rigged. That despite them having gotten a lot of product support from various companies, this group had the friends of the judges were the ones getting the awards.
Disappointing is probably at conventions catching people cheating. I've done that a few times at conventions I've been responsible for. And that's very disappointing to find somebody cheating, because who are they cheating but themselves?
It doesn't happen very often in gaming circles, but we're still human beings, and there are still people that are, subject to human foibles.
Yeah, and I don't go around and check everybody's tallies. And, I tell them, okay, you got this many points, you got that many. I don't check up on them. If they're cheating, they're not cheating me.
What was your best gaming experience and why?
Probably the best moment in my life gaming was my youngest daughter was born with a cleft lip, and we adopted her from China. And she had gone through several rounds of operations, and the last time she went through operations was a day surgery, and we came home and she was on the couch. She was kind of zonked out, and she didn't want to watch TV, she didn't want to read, she didn't want to do anything. So I'm sitting there trying to come up with something she wants to do, and she looked at me and said, "Can we play a game?" And it was, you know, a couple of hours of just playing light games, and it didn't matter what we played. I don't even remember what we played, but it kept her occupied and it kept her focused on something other than the pain that she was in. That was pretty amazing. Seeing that something as simple as, you know, rolling some dice or flipping some cards can take somebody's mind out of whatever it is that they're going through at that moment and just put them into the reality of the game for a half hour, and that's what they're focused on, that's always amazing.
Although I think one of my best was at a convention, actually. I was with my son, and he was looking forward to playing, and it was just like this haunted wedding scenario. We signed up for it. We didn't even know what it was, right? But he wanted to do it, so I went with him. He was young at the time. He was 14 or 15 or something. And so I went with him, and the GM didn't show up.
Best gaming moment actually was here at TotalCon last year when Mike Pondsmith was running late for his Cyberpunk game. And I sat down with a bunch of his fans and I'll run the game just until he gets here. And I had never played Cyberpunk, nor had ever run Cyberpunk. And off the cuff ran the game, but it was just fun. It was an enjoyable experience. And I couldn't ask for, the fans were happy, and at the end of the day, that's what really mattered. So.
And he was disappointed, and there was this other guy with his two sons, and they were all disappointed. They'd all want to play this game. So I said, you know what? And all we had was the paragraph describing what the game was. And so I invented a game to run for that 4-hour slot. And that game, every single person who played that game said it was the best game they had ever played. It was just like I got hit by, you know how sometimes you get hit by a bolt of inspiration? And it was just funny and hysterical, and we were laughing so hard, we were crying, and people were thought it was amazing. And that was really I loved that, right? That was the height of applying my skills to actually produce something that really worked for the people that were there.
Probably, I would have to say, the first time that I actually ran Fiasco, I had a group of people at the table who didn't know each other. And by the end of the game, they were up on the floor dancing with a disco ball. It was just phenomenal.
But those times when you're sitting around the table and everyone's in character and you can feel that energy and you can tell that everyone's excited and really into it, those are the moments that we all are striving for.
Do you remember the Millers? A game night might just help many families to cope with daily issues. Take the tablets away from the kids and actually interact with them. You might be surprised at how much fun you will have. In the end, gaming is fun, and that is why we keep playing. So get out there and give a tabletop game a try. Be like the Millers. Be a gamer.